more, quote, without science, you remain poor. Poor too, poverty and ignorance. It's also the fantasism. We have to have the two of them and try to marry them. Either as a peninsula, half water and half land, or relatively part of it and part of it. But you have, and that's wisdom, to distinguish between right and wrong. And there are no, we can't learn it at school, because all experts, when we used to say, are experts for things that did happen. We don't have an expert for things that may happen. But I think now people are beginning to change their mind, including Europe. And that is that the big data may provide you so much information that you can have a look at the future, the prediction. You cannot focus completely. But if you know, for example, the medical history of a person, you know his weaknesses, you can warn him, you can take care of him. So we are all the time relatively in the peninsula, compromising and distinctions. It's not a mixed, it's a harmony that is a result of a great drama. Humanity is a great drama. And I think the leader should serve and harmonize. You call it compromising us, I call it harmonizing. They're the same thing. It calls for the same effort. And here we are. And again, I can't understand why people don't see it so clearly. And why people are so deeply in love with the past, which is useless, and so reluctant about the future, which is so promising. You know, people say that better learn the past so you won't repeat the same mistakes. It's not such a wise advice. Suppose you make new mistakes. Are they better? The past is a mistake. The past doesn't have a future. The past is a waste of time. And for that reason, the hierarchy of the Jewish life were not kings, were not tycoons, were not tyrants, they were Nevi'im. They dealt only with the future. They were poor, they didn't have authority, they weren't mighty, but they all the time were a sort of a maze in our ways. Be careful, don't move to right, don't move to left. Be careful, even when you talk about eternity, don't forget your watch. And that is the way I look now. Not at an early age, but at an age where you still can think and hope and love and not believe in Sigmund Freud.
So, being experts in things that may happen, I think is something that we're trying to create at Wisdom. Mr. Paris, we know that you will need to leave us in a few minutes. Rick, you want to quickly? No, I would love for you to stay for the entire day, but we were, strictly informed about your schedule. So on the question of wisdom versus youth, and maybe I'll explain what I mean. There are things that wisdom teaches us that we know in hindsight, and maybe if we knew them at the beginning, we wouldn't have embarked on a path or mission that Paris, Mr. Paris so accurately described, is sometimes very difficult. Rick, do you want to pitch in?
Yeah, let me see if I can tie together various metaphors, images, experiences with what attracted me to this idea of a way to, quote, organize the world's wisdom. And that is the difference between answers and questions. I do not think, I think one of the extraordinary differences between what we're talking about in wisdom is not to search for answers. It's not as if wisdom that anyone has or that everyone has, I believe, is supposed to be the answer. You look at it, is it enough? You know, you can look at the crowd wisdom of how everyone's gone through divorce or having a child, and there's an answer for you. The difference is, and I think the humility of it is, you'll see questions. I didn't think to ask that. And one of my favorite American authors is a man named John Gardner. John Gardner had a beautiful little book or essay called On Moral Fiction. And he distinguishes two types of fiction: moral fiction and fiction that is not moral. Not that it was immoral, but it had no moral value. And basically what his description of fiction is the attempt, because of its power, its success, its creativity, its imagination, to imagine yourself in others or in a future. Explore a future that you don't actually have to try out. And that is the way you teach moral lessons, by being able to imagine a future. And you can then reject it, or accept it, or change it. And I think that's very similar, and it's a fundamental difference between how we use all this connectivity now, which is a spectacular way to try to get information, try to get answers. I don't think wisdom is about someone wise or the crowd-sourced version of the answer, as opposed to framing and laying out the questions, which then becomes the future. And I think people that think this way and hear other people's stories, that's this equivalent of moral fiction. And that's on the side of the searchers. But equally important is something, again, that almost you didn't say about people as having humor and imagination, but they're storytellers. I mean, people are storytellers in small ways, and the invitation to someone, to everyone, to actually tell their story, to tell what was important to them, is an extraordinary gift. And it's not an invitation to take a picture of what you ate last night. It's fine. I'm not judging it. I don't find it very interesting, but I'm sure some people do. But to hear stories and hear the aggregation of stories is, I think, is a marvelous gift. And when you put those things together, I think what you have is a moral framework for global knowledge, and that's what really that's what really intrigues me about this.
Thank you so much. Mr. Paris, would you like to add? If not, I'm going to thank you.
I want just to make
absolutely
in the wake of your remark. Actually, my teacher was David Ben-Gurion. I learned from him many things. But what I learned from him mostly is two things which are basic and everybody can afford it. A, don't lie. The minute you lie to yourself. Stop being yourself. The minute you lie great misbelief, suspicion, enemies. So I worked with him for 20 years. I knew if he'll quote me in one line, that will be the end of my career. He would forgive everything, but never lie. The second thing he says, look, the wisest thing is to be an honest man, to have a moral code. You can decide. By the way, it doesn't cost even money to be honest man. Many people don't know it. They think corruption is more attractive. But that each of us can do. And if these two simple proposals will become a navigating line, you love your children more, they will love you more. You love each other more. And they are basic. Lie is an escape. Lie is really to cover something wrong. You may do wrong, but then try to correct it. And also, when you really try to be honest, it means to be honest to other people, not to yourself. And the next thing I learned from him, to complete it, is always there. My greatest regret in life is that all the dreams I have had, I found it right now too small. Who limits you to dream? Why put you limits on a dream? And if not the full dream will be realized, at least the size of it will decide the result of it.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are being told by your staff that you have to continue on your busy schedule.
You mean I put it?
Thank you very much.